Hello guys, welcome back to Horus Labs YouTube channel. And the last episode of the Becoming a Chironaut series, we took a look at common programming concepts, part two, right, where we mostly studied commands and control flows. Today we're going to be taking things a bit further by going into like the chapter three of like the Cairo book, which takes a look at common collections in Cairo. Now, once again, we're going to be dividing this chapter into two different videos, being that the second sub chapter dictionaries is a bit long, and thus I would want to cover that in a different videos in a different video, right, in order to keep this video short. Okay, so if you are just joining us for the first time, I would advise you check out the previous videos before coming back to this one. And as always, please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you are informed every time we drop a new video. And without any more delay, let's just get started. Now let's get started with arrays. Arrays are very useful as they give you the ability to store elements of the same data type in a collection. And to basically use arrays in Cairo, right, you need access to like the array traits which you can find in the core library. Now the array traits gives you the ability to like create and use like most of the methods as pertaining to array which we're going to be studying in this particular episode. So, without further ado, let's just dive into our code editor where we're going to play around with creating arrays, updating arrays, and so many more. Alright, so now in our code editor, and as always, we're going to first update our README. So let's say BAC4, and this is going to be common collections and array. So in the next episode, like I said, we're going to be looking into dictionaries. Okay, so I already created the BAC4 folder earlier, so I'm going to go into here. Since we're just going to be looking at arrays today, I'm just going to clear everything in here, and we're going to, as always, start with our main function. And once we create that, now, the first thing we're going to be looking at is how we can create an array. Now, like I said earlier, Carry provides you with the array traits which you can find within the core library, and we're going to be using that to like create an array. So, what we want to do, right, is I'm going to say, let's mute array. So it's a good practice to always make your array mutable, right? Especially considering especially if you want your array to be dynamic, right? For example, you want to like add append new values to your array. So we need to specify the data type that the array is going to be stored. Like I said earlier, the arrays are used to store elements of the same data type, right? So I'm going to say array, and I want to within this array I want to store fields 252s. Okay, and next up I'm going to I'm going to specify this array traits, and within the array traits, I want to call the new function. Now, this is how you essentially like create a new array in Cairo or instantiate a new array in Cairo. Now, there are different means by which you can actually like specify the data type of like this array, right? So this is one means. Another means we could, or another approach we could actually take, right, is okay, we remove what's it called, we remove this from here, right, and we come in here and we're just going to say, okay, I want you to take in fields 252s, and yeah, so that is another means, but I prefer to stick with like I by default usually use like the first approach. All right, now we have a new array instantiated. How do we add new, what's it called, new items to that particular array? We do that using what we call the append method. And how you do this basically is you call the append method on like the array, and I'm going to pass in the value I want to append. So let's say I want to append 10, right? So I just appended one element to this array. I could do multiple, so let's copy this, and I'm just going to paste and paste and paste and paste. So I'm going to this I'm going to append 20, to this I'm going to append 30, to this I'm going to append 40, to this I'm going to append 50. All right, now we have seen how we can actually create an array and add items to them. The next thing we're going to be looking at, right, is how you can actually like get this these items you've added. Now, there are actually two means to get items from an array. The first is the get method, the other is the add method. Now, these two approaches are very distinctive in the case that you want to use the get method in scenarios where you are probably going to try to what's it called, access an index that does not exist. So because the get method essentially returns the what's it called, the option treat, right, where you have access to where you can actually use like a match statement to predict or to panic or to say okay, something should happen, right, if an item does not exist in that particular index. While the art method actually would panic if you let's say try to access an index that does not exist. Now this is how you basically want to use both, right? So let's say I'm trying to use let's just use a comment. So let's start with using the adds method since that's like a lot easier. One of the ways you can actually do this, right, is so let's say I want to get an item at the index 0. Remember with arrays you start from the index 0 and move up, right? So I want to get the item at index 0. Okay, so now I'm going to just put that in a value. So let me call this x. Let x be equals array that adds 0. Now the add method returns this element as a span, as what's it called, as a snapshot, right? So you want to probably the snap this. So we're going to be looking into the snap operator in from 2 episodes later, where we're going to be looking into ownerships, reference and snapshots. So if you want to read ahead, you could definitely like check the Cairo book. But basically the whole idea is the add method returns like a snapshot. So most times for your use case you probably want to like to snap it using like this the snap operator. So now let's try to print that to our terminal and see what we get. So I'm going to just say first element is this. So we're going to pass in x. Now let's come to our terminal and run scarp cairo run, and when you run this you should get the value 10. So you can say that the first element is 10. You can also get for this value, in as much as you pass in the correct index. For this another means you can actually through which you can actually use like the add method. So let's see, you could actually do something like as always use this, right? So this is a syntax you are probably more familiar with. So when you do something like this, right, you are also using like the add method. And if we try to print the value of y, so let's just get something else. So let's get at the index 2, and I'll just clear my terminal and run scarp cairo run again. You see, this time around we're going to get the value 30, because 0 1 2, right? So we're going to get the value 30. And now if you try to, let's see what happens when we try to access an index that does not exist. So there's 0 1 2 3 4. So if we try to access index 6, let's check what happens. So I'm going to clear and scarp cairo run. So you can see run panicked with this index out of bounds. Now what if we want to like probably we're creating we're trying to like implement a logic where we want to account for like panic cases. So we are not sure where the index ends, right? And if we're trying to access something that is out of bounds, you want to like kind of like account for it. Now that is where the get method comes in. Now this is probably how you want to use the get method, right? So let's come here. I'm going to say just add a comment using the get method. Okay, now we want to let's say we want to get an index. Now I'm going to say okay, let this index be equal to let's just say okay 1, right? And so just so that we can probably play around with the index, make it easily more mutable. Now what we're going to do is we are going to perform a match operation on like using what's it called, the get method, and we are going to try to account for the two cases. Like I said, the get method returns an option trait which would either have a value, and if it has a value we can account for it using option sum, and if it doesn't have a value we can also account for that using option none. So what we're going to do is we're going to say I'm going to say let's match array dot get, and we want to get at index, right? So what we're going to do here is now we're passing the index. We're going to first of all account for if this has a value. So now if this has a value, what do we want to do? So what we're going to simply just do is we're going to return the value, and we're going to unbox it. Remember, I said this returns like what's it called, an option with the box treat, right? So we're going to get the item, we're going to unbox it. One more thing, right? So we're going to want to snap this, right? Yeah, and we're going to return that. Now if it has no value, what do we want to do? All right, so forget about those errors. That's because this does not return anything. So we're just going to close it from there. All right, so what we want to say is, okay, if for some reasons this does not really have a value, right? So if this does not have a value, what do we want to do? So we can just simply, we're going to simply panic, and we're going to see this is index is out of bounds. So that's what we're going to do, right? So sorry, this is not supposed to be here. All right, so what we're essentially doing, right, is we're calling the get method and we're passing in like this particular index, and like I said, it returns like the option trait. So we're going to check, okay, does it have any value? If it does, we want to return that value and want to unbox. Now the match construct might be new to you since we are yet to like cover it in this series. I think that's going to be in about 3-4 series ahead, where we look at enums and pattern matching. But like as always, if you want to check out this, I'm going to add a link to like the particular section in the career book that talks about the match construct. You can do well to check that out. But a brief explanation of what's going on, right, is when we use the get method, it returns option with like the box type. So what we're doing is we're checking, okay, the option trait essentially would, as you can see from here, would have like just has these two properties, which is sum and it's none. So we're saying if it has a value, using the sum trait, the sum option, right, we want to return that value, and we want to unbox it because like I said, it's of the box type. So we want to unbox it. Lastly, we want to desnap it, right? So if it doesn't have a value, we're saying I want you to panic with this particular error message, index is out of bounds. All right, so what we're going to do is I'm going to come here and remove what we had earlier because this is going to make it panic, right? So let's just remove this, and I'll just change this to the X rather, right? Basically what we printed out the first time. Now I'm going to also come here and let's assign that value y to this match construct, and I'm just going to print whatever gets returned from there. So I'm going to print whatever get returns from here, right? Okay, so if we try to access the index one, let's see what we get. So I'm going to run Skype Cairo run, right? So if I try to print that value, we're going to get, okay, the first element is just for this, and for 1 we get 20, right, which is the element at index 1. Okay, now let's try to access an index that also exists. So when we try to access an index such as 6, let's see what we get. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to run Skype Cairo run. So this is going to panic, right, because that's what we asked it to do. So you can see it says run panic with this. So let's assume in the case where we probably do not want like our application to panic, right? So maybe I want to return a filter so that says index is out of bounds, right? I could also do that. So now if I save this and I try to run that again, this time you're going to see it's not going to panic since we were able to take care of like when the option does not exist. So as you can see, it returns this value, which is the failed 252 representation of index is out of bounds. So that's essentially how you want to use like both methods, both like the get method or the add method. So what we're going to do is let's just dive back into our career book and basically see if there's anything like what kind of like missing out. So back into our career book, okay, we already looked into updating an array, how you can update an array, right? We had to look at how you can remove elements. Okay, so back again into our code editor. Now there are two major means by which you can actually like modify array. Like I said when we started earlier, right? The modification of arrays in Cairo is like a bit limited, right? And this is partly due to like its immutable memory. So there are just two means by which you can modify like an array. One is like the append method, which we looked at earlier, which basically like adds an item to the end of an array. Now the second is how you remove an item from an element from an array, basically, which is the pop front method. Now what that does basically is essentially is it removes just the element at the front. So if we use the pop front, it's going to take out the first element in the array, in this case which is 10. Now the reason why this happens is because, like I said, Caro's memory is immutable. So most times when you do modification of array, it's not like modifying like should I say, it's not modifying memory cells per se, but it's just like updating pointers. So that's just basically the reason why you can do very limited modifications when it comes to arrays in Cairo. Now this is how you want to probably like remove the first element in an array, right? So we're going to call the array and we're going to call the pop front method in like the array. So most times this often returns like the option type. So we're just going to like unwrap that. That's basically how you would want to like remove the first element in the array. Now if you do this, now let's try to access the element at array index 0. You're going to see it's going to change from 10 to 20. All right, so let's see, let z be equal to, let's use as always our snap operator, and we are going to access the elements at index 0. Now let's print that and see what we get. So I'm going to print, I'm going to say new first element is okay. Now let's try to print out Z. So I'm going to just clear as always cap Cairo run. And when you compile, you can see the new first element is 20, right? And that's because we removed the first element, which was 10 in this case. And so you can, anytime you use array.pop, for example, if you use this twice, the element you're going to get as z is going to be 30, and so on and so forth. So that's just basically how you can remove an element from an array. So back again into our what's it called, back into like the Cairo book. So we already looked at removing elements, we've looked at reading elements using like the get method, we've looked at using the add method. Now there are like some size related methods which we are yet to look at, the len method, which basically returns like the length of an array, the values of type usize, and the isEmpty method which returns like a boolean. So let's try to use that too. So back into our code editor once again. Let's say we want to get like the length of our new array, right? So I'm going to say let length, which is of course of type usize, be equal to array.length. All right, so let's try to print that and see what we get. If we print the length is we want that to be length. So now if we try to print that scarp chiron, the length we are going to be getting is 4. So remember we removed the first element, so it starts from 20, and so the new length of our array is 4. And you can also check if an array is empty, right? So let's call this let is empty. That's going to be array.isEmpty. Okay, and if you try to print that out too, if we try to print that out, you're probably going to get a false because our array in this case is not empty. So let's try to print that out. Clear scarp chiron. Yup. So that is false because our array is not empty. So another thing we're going to be looking at is a way you can actually like initialize the value of an array at compile time. So most of what we've done right now is right. We basically create or instantiate a new empty array, then we append values to it. But there are cases where you just want to like add the values at once, probably at compile time, or maybe it's like a fixed size array of so or something. You can do that using like the array macro. So another way we can actually instantiate our array, right? So let's call this array 2, and array 2 is going to be of array, let's use a UN 16 this time around, and we can just simply use the array macro. So using the array macro, we're going to pass in our new values. So I'm going to say, okay, 60, 70, 80, and I'm going to close that. So this way we actually like instantiate an array at compile time. Now if I try to print one value from there, so I'm going to try to print let's try to print let's make things better. So let value be equal to the value of the array at 0, and if we try to print out value, array 2 rather. So if we try to print out value, we're going to be getting the value the value 60, right, which is the value at 0, which is in this case 60. So that's how you probably want to like instantiate an array at compile time. Now one of the last things we're going to be looking at is how you can store different data types in Cairo. So like we said earlier, Cairo is in Cairo, basically when you instantiate an array, it has to be like all the elements of the array has to be like of the same data type. But that does not mean you cannot like create an array of different data types. So if you have such a use case, you're going to want to do that using like an enum. So one way to do that is we're going to create an enum. So let's just derive some things on this enum. We're going to derive copy, we're going to derive drop. All right, so we're going to create an enum. Let's call this enum data type. Okay, and we're going to let's specify different data types. So we want to have an integer data type, and we want to have like a felt 252 data type, which is going to be a felt 252. Okay, now you can actually use this as a means to create like an array of like dynamic data type. Now this is how you would want to do it, right? If we go down, we're going to create another new array 3, and this is rather going to be of the type data type. Okay, and of course we can just use the array instantiation, which we just learned about right now. Okay, now we want to let's try to append a new element to this array. So now what we're going to do is we're going to append we have two data types, right? A unit integer and a felt 252. Now we're going to try to append an integer. We're going to try to append a felt 252. Now to append the integer, we're going to make a call to the data type, right? And the data type, we have the integer type, and the integer is supposed to accept a unit 8 value. So I'm just going to pass 20 to it, and that way we just essentially something I forgot to mention, right? If you're going to I think I mentioned it earlier, if you're going to like mutate an array, even if it was created like using the array macro or the new trait or the new method from the array traits, right? You want to add this mute keyword to it, so that way you can actually like what's it called, update the array. So we just tried out adding, or what's it called, an element of a unit 8 data type to like this array. We can also try adding an element of if it's 252, right? So we're going to use the data type enum once again, and we're going to add the field 252. So I'm just going to say append 10 to it, and now we just actually appended different data types, like elements of different data types, to like our array. Now the last thing we're going to be looking at before we call it the day, right, is the concept of span. Now in Cairo we have like we have the span, the span data type, which is basically like a snapshot of an array. So we've mentioned like we've been mentioning snapshots. We talked about the snapping and a whole lot of other things. Now, why would you want to create a snapshot out of an array? Now, an array is modifiable, it's dynamic, right? But a span is not. So spans, you will probably want to use spans in cases where you want to safely access like an array without modifying like its value. So once an array is turned into a span, you cannot like modify the value. And it also helps, right, because you can actually what's it called, pass the spanned value of the array between functions, right, without having any sort of issues like as regards borrowing. We're going to be looking into like a lot of these things when we go into the chapter of the career book that talks on understanding ownership. So you're going to, that's what we're going to be understanding, the concept of borrowing, reference, snapshots, the snapping, and a whole lot of other things were mentioned. But like I said, if you are confused about this concept, I'm going to add like link those sub chapters like in the video description, so like you can check them out. All right, so the way you'd want to create like a snapshot of an array, right, basically it's using like a span of an array. It's just using like this, so using the what's it called, the span method. So if I okay, I'm just going to say let array 4. Now array 4 is a span method of like our initial array. This is our initial array, right? Like I said, a span, like a spanned array cannot be modified. You can't append values to them, you can't remove values from them. So now if we try to do something like array 4, okay, even if we array 4 dot append, so we try to append the value to it, you're going to see like the compiler is going to shout, it says method append could not be called on this data type. So you can't modify the contents of like a spanned array. And with that, I think we should we should have covered most of what we need to cover in this particular chapter. So I'm just going to go back into the career just to verify that. Okay, so we've looked into size related methods, we've looked into the array macro, we've looked into storing multiple types of enums, and then we just covered span. Okay, so I guess that's it for this particular episode. So we're going to just take the quiz before we go, right? It says which call to this find until function will cause a runtime panic. Okay, so we have the find until function takes the span version of an array, takes this n value and this tail value. So it loops, and if this value here is equals to this value, it breaks, and if not, it checks. It gets the values for like it uses the at method in this case, right, to assess the values within this span, and if it's equal to this, it breaks. All right, so let's see the responses. So find until array this 1 2 3 dot span. Now this is going to pass, right, because we have like a value which is equal to what we have in the array. So our span array is 1 2 3, and we have a value here that's equates, yeah, the value of n, right, that equates what something in the array. So if you try to access the v array at position 2, you're going to get 3. So this is going to pass. Let's check this. So at 0, will this pass? Yeah, this is going to pass because the till value, this is going to pass. Not going to panic. The till value is 0, so it's definitely going to, it's not definitely not going to panic. Then we come here, array 1 2 3 dot span 1 4. Okay, so we have an end value 1 and 1 exist here. So this should actually pass 2, because if you try to access v at 0, it should be equal to 1. So yeah, this should return a value. Now we come to the last find until array. Okay, this is the value. So it has a value 4. Now 4 does not exist in this array, and we have like a u size of 4, which means this index is going to be inaccessible. So we're going to check at value at index 0 for 4, it also exists. At index 2 for 4, it also exists. At index 3 for 4, it also exists. So sorry, at index 2 for 4 is going to doesn't exist. So because it's still the value of till is still like it's greater than like the number of indexes we have here, it's going to try to check at index 3 for 4, and that is going to like panic. So this is like our answer. This is going to cause a runtime panic. So the next one says determine whether the program will pass the compiler. If it passes, write the expected output of the program if it were executed. Okay, so we have this v array, which does a byte array, and in here we're trying to get the value at this index and pass it to s, then append the value. This is not going to compile, being you can't just access this value at this index and try to like pass it to s. To do this, we'll probably need to try to copy the value, but byte array, to know it doesn't what's it called, it doesn't implement the copy trait. So this is going to fail. So this is not going to compile. And for this other program, so determine whether the program will pass the compiler. If it passes, write the expected output of the program. All right, so we have this array of u size 1 2 3. So we access the value at index 0, which is 1, and we try to add 1 to that value. So 1 plus equal to 1 is 1 plus 1, which is 2. And now we're trying to print out these values. So we're printing out I, the value of I is going to be 2, and we're printing out v0. So v0 is going to be 1. So this program is going to compile, and the output should be, we should have we're going to have I, which is going to be 2, right? And we're going to have v0, which is going to be 1. So let's submit that. Okay, we seem to have filled one question. I think that was what we did right, the 2 1. So the value was supposed, I guess maybe was it the extra space we added? But well, let's see the correct answer. Oh, I see. Yeah, because our answer was correct, but we didn't really add the extra space. Oh well, but as you can see, we got the rest right. You can definitely try that out from your end and check out the context. And yeah, I think with that, we've come to like the end of this particular episode. So if you have any questions, you could ask in the comment section below, or reach out to me on Twitter at 0xdarlington. And as always, if you enjoyed the video, do like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and yeah, please share with someone else who's like interested in learning the career programming language. And with that, I'll see you in the next episode where we take a look at dictionaries. Yeah, bye bye.